Home sweet home, right? Tell me, how does it feel? I have no home, so I wouldn't know.
You still got parents though, right?
A mother named Genova. She died shortly after I was born. My father... Why am I talking about this?
But looking back, all the signs were there. From the moment we arrived, Sephiroth just wasn't himself.
This landscape.
Huh?
I could swear I've seen it before.
You okay? Genova? Wasn't that...
Was created the same way? Am I the same as these monsters? Am I even human?
Sephiroth!
I still get chills from this moment in Final Fantasy VII as Sephiroth culminates the coronation of his identity with the slaughter of Nibelheim. When I first observed this scene, I couldn't grasp the implications it had not just for Sephiroth, but for you and for me. So let's talk about it. Before we get going here, don't worry. I'm not gonna spoil the game for anyone. There are plenty of newbies to the Final Fantasy VII universe, and for my part, I'm going to do the best to let you enjoy it for the first time. But there is enough from the demo for us to glean the point that I want to make about Sephiroth's actions as presented. So let's start with the context. Cloud and company are venturing out into the greater world of Final Fantasy VII and are curious about Cloud and Sephiroth's history. So Cloud begins telling the tale. There's a Mako reactor having trouble, for which the organization known as Soldier is sent out to investigate under the authority of Shinra. I know, very original, but it is. Called to the site of the reactor near a small town called Nibelheim is the world-renowned hero of Soldier, the legendary Sephiroth, and a newer recruit, Cloud, who we find out is from this very same town. Accompanied by Cloud's childhood friend, the fire team makes their way into the mountains of Nibel to the energy reactor only to discover something terrible. The reactor is being used for an alternate purpose: the experimentation of fusing gross amounts of Mako into living organisms, including humans. But if that wasn't enough, Sephiroth discovers another secret, one that will haunt everyone involved. The most impossible obstacle facing the hero, the name of his mother being the source of such horrors. Remember, he just mentioned his mother's name, saying that he has nowhere to return to, only to discover that Nibel has far more significance to him and to his mother than he first thought. Now at this point, it might be easy to dismiss all of this as non-fiction wrapped in a video game, but how you handle adversity is something that all of us can relate to. Sephiroth locks himself inside of the old manor found just outside Nibelheim and pours through any and all available information to seek any semblance of the truth. After all, what was just known about him changed. Now, adversity holds a unique ability. It reveals a man to himself. It's easy to accept praise from others, to be well when things are rather smooth. But what if they aren't? We're given two clues that something is bothering Sephiroth. The first is the conversation when talking about family. Sephiroth laughs off the prospect of talking about it, asking himself why he's even bothering. The second is when he's at the hotel and perceives that indeed he has memories, or perceives that Mount Nebel is familiar to him despite the fact that he's visiting it for the first time. He's agitated. There's something beyond the calm, cool, and collected hero of the war, something that gnaws at his conscience, only revealed in this place. Is what's underneath a ticking time bomb, or an opportunity to put the missing pieces of his life back together again. Whatever that knowledge is, comes second to what Sephiroth chooses to do with it. And this spelunking into the heart reveals all of the right conditions for what follows. And what follows can only be best described as a calamity. Putting the data together for himself, Sephiroth determines that he's the byproduct of the experiments of a Dr. Gast. And albeit a successful one judging by what came out of that pod. Professor Gast, or Dr. Gast, is someone that he holds in high regard. And armed with this knowledge, he proceeds to move based on what he believes he is at his core. And he proceeds to consume the inhabitants of Nibelheim like a beast. But know this, what's happening to Sephiroth isn't as nearly as important as what he determines moving forward. Adversity introduces us to ourselves. Faced with the adversity of choosing how to respond to being manufactured, he now has to deal with this new image of himself in light of this blistering discovery in a seemingly insignificant town. The choice is his alone. But the challenge doesn't change Sephiroth, it reveals him. And he yields to what he finds at the bottom of his character: hatred, bitterness, anger, and malice. Armed with this new knowledge, he frees himself. It's as if he no longer has to uphold what others wish for him to be. He is free to be chained to the darkness he discovers through adversity. Not the kind of difficulty that can be cut down with a sword, but the kind that acts as a mirror to the soul. Nibelheim doesn't change Sephiroth. It reveals him. And we act on what we believe. I'm sure almost all of you have at some point heard of the story of David and Goliath, right? Like a shepherd boy completely defeating a 10-foot tall dude who has 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. When he walks, the earth quakes, and he holds a spear, the tip of which, get this, weighs approximately the weight of a bowling ball. Imagine that getting tossed at you and just your upper body exploding. And he beats him with a slingshot and then beheads him, right? But what most people often miss about the story is the imbuing of the power to the boy through his belief system versus the inability of the king of Israel at the time, Saul, for what he chooses to believe in. This adversity named Goliath doesn't change either of them. He reveals them. King Saul stood head and shoulders above everyone else in Israel, but when faced with someone who towered above him, all his royalty and strength faded, and Israel wasn't left with a king, but a coward who would not defend his people. Meanwhile, this unassuming boy is unfazed by the giant. He measures Goliath not by his own size, but by the stature of his God. He told the stories of 2 instances in which one of his father's sheep is taken by a lion and in the other a bear, and he kills both. What? Then he has the audacity to say that the giant standing in front of him will be just like the lion and just like the bear. Why? Because he recalled the favor of God over God's people. We act according to what we believe. What you do communicates to others what you believe about yourself. And Sephiroth tells us quite a bit, doesn't he? But what about me? And what about you? If there's something to admire about Sephiroth, is that he doesn't hide from the challenge. It's easy to bury one's head, to escape into a game or anything else, to avoid confronting the difficulty we're facing. But don't run from it. Embrace it. Use it. It can help you to see what's going on underneath the surface of your own heart. And we can either be grateful for what we find or get busy putting our hands to work to change what we discover. In light of Sephiroth's horrific response, here's 3 tips I have for you when you're faced with a challenge. Number 1, exercise caution. It's easy to slip into a mindset of trying to fix or overcome the situation right away, but it's been a situation forming over time, and often the solution isn't hastily gained either. 2, record your thoughts. Now, this may seem a little bit daunting, but I promise it helps. Our thoughts are fleeting, but they are windows into what's going on inside of us, some things that we suppress all throughout the day. We may not always like what we'll find, but if we come at them with intention, we won't have to be a victim to our thoughts. After all, we become what we think about. Take time to write it down or record it, come back to it later. This is what I call taking inventory. And the 3rd is to upgrade your idea factory. If you don't want to end up like Sephiroth and destroy what you're meant to preserve, your thoughts about yourself need to change above all else. For me, my battle is simply believing what God says about me and what he has for me versus what I come across and what I think about myself because of a numerous amount of situations as I've been living. I know, I'm not offering you anything. I just find the Bible more of a practical guidebook for living rather than a religious one, but I'll table that for a different real talk. Unfortunately for Sephiroth, what his adversity reveals is a monster, one in which he fully embraces. What has your situation revealed about you? Think about that as you set off to enjoy the Final Fantasy series. Until next time, I'm Agent R. Be the meta, prove your meta. Peace.